Ex-Caribbean vacation on the most comprehensive travel channel for the islands. TravelShareIt.com. That's TravelShareIt.com.
This is Michael Valila, Adjutant of the Disabled American Veterans Department of Massachusetts. We focus on the people returning from service, not their specific illness or injury. Our number one goal is to make sure our veterans have the necessary services they need, be it physical, emotional, or financial, so that their transition can be seamless. You can help our great American heroes as well by making a donation today by visiting dav5k.boston. That's dav5k.boston.
As a busy mom, my to-do list is full.
While we can't add more hours to the day, we do have a great resource to help.
Go Red for Women has information to help you and your family live a healthier life.
Visit goredforwomen.org/momlife today.
Did you outgrow your timeshare and now you want out? But you can't. You can't sell it, and you can't get out of the contract. Imagine trying to get out of your mortgage. That's what a timeshare is. You can't just call up the bank and say, I don't want to pay it anymore. But we may be able to help you do just that. Listen, a timeshare maybe for you once was a great thing, but now you don't use it much. And they are not easy to get rid of. Plus, you do have to pay for it every month. Qualified timeshare owners can get out of their contract legally and permanently without ruining your credit or even filing bankruptcy. And imagine, no more mortgage payment or fees. Call the Timeshare Exit Hotline qualification line now. It's free to learn more.
800-455-7967. 800-455-7967. 800-455-7967. That's 800-455-7967. Paid for by Timeshare Defense.
This is Tucker Silva of the Financial Exchange Show, and I'm joined today by estate planning attorney Todd Lutzke from the law firm of Cushing & Dolan with your Financial Exchange quick tip of the day. And today we're talking about your brand new guide, Todd, how to leave assets to your beneficiaries. Todd, how can you ensure that your kids' inheritance can be protected from future divorces?
Well, estate planning, as you know, does things like avoid probate, protect assets from nursing homes, and reduce taxes. But you know what? The family behind the estate plan can be more important. And so the trusts live on after you die, and you can have language in there that divides the assets to the children, but doesn't just pay it out, right? It holds it in trust for them and allows them to be trustee, but just not take it. In order to get it, they have an independent trustee that can say yes or no. And that way, by not owning the asset, if they get divorced down the line after you're dead, and the other side says, hey, I want half of what's in that trust, you're going to say, that's great, but you have to ask the independent trustee. So it's now not going to be available to you. And more than just the ability to say no, it's the fact that you don't own it. So if you don't own it, it's not a marital asset to begin with, so it should not be even subject to the divorce. So learning how your trust works after you die can oftentimes be more important than when you're living, and it does more for you after you die than when you're living sometimes.
The estate planning experts at Cushing & Dolan have been helping families like yours for more than 30 years, and they've written a brand new guide called How to Leave Assets to Your Beneficiaries. To get your free copy of this comprehensive guide that will help you determine the best way to leave assets to your family, simply call 866-848-5699. That's 866-848-5699, or you can request it from their website, legalexchangeshow.com.
The proceeding was paid for, and the views expressed are solely those of Cushing & Dolan. Cushing & Dolan and or Armstrong Advisory may contact you offering legal or investment services. Cushing & Armstrong do not endorse each other and are not affiliated. The Financial Exchange is produced by Money Matters Radio and is hosted by employees of the Armstrong Advisory Group, a registered investment advisor. All opinions expressed are solely those of the hosts, do not reflect the opinions of Armstrong Advisory or anyone else. Investments can lose money. This program does not offer any specific financial or investment advice. Please consult your own financial, tax, and estate planning advisors before making any investment decisions. Armstrong Advisory and the advertisers heard on this program do not endorse each other or their services. Armstrong and Money Matters Radio do not compensate each other for referrals and are not affiliated. This is the Financial Exchange with Paul Lane and Marc Fandetti. Your exclusive look at business and financial news affecting your day, your city, your world. Stay informed and up to date about economic and market trends, plus breaking business news every day. The Financial Exchange is a proud partner of the Disabled American Veterans Department of Massachusetts. Help us support our great American heroes by visiting dav5k.boston and making a donation today. This is the Financial Exchange with Paul Lane and Marc Fandetti.
Welcome to this Tuesday edition of the Financial Exchange. Paul Lane, Marc Fandetti, and Ben Kitchen here with you. And we continue to see up and down action on Wall Street. We saw sell-offs of more than 2% across the major indices during yesterday's trading. But today, they are bouncing back in the other direction with all the major indices, Dow Jones, S&P 500, and the NASDAQ up over 1.5%. There is no real significant news, unless I have missed something and been asleep at the switch, Mark, that indicates as to why we're seeing a bit of a bump today. Obviously, the volatility that we've seen this month has been quite tremendous and sort of out of the norms that we saw back in late fall and early this year. But ultimately, regardless of the action that we've seen over today or the last couple of weeks, it is going to be on track for one of the worst Aprils that we've seen, if we're looking at the Dow specifically, since 1932. And this stems from just a lot of uncertainty economically in the United States at the moment.
Yeah, it's not even, you're right, it is uncertainty, but we know exactly what to pin it on. The White House wants to fundamentally change some of our institutions. You can agree or disagree. That's almost a political question. Do you want an independent Fed? Do you not? I certainly wouldn't understand what the heck was going on if I wasn't a longtime student of the Fed monetary policy generally, so I'm not sure how anybody could have the foggiest how to interpret this. It'd be like telling me whether or not the FDA should approve a drug or something. So I'm sort of impressed that most people seem to understand, at least if the market's reaction is any guide, that an independent Fed is important because you don't want to put control of the money supply in the hands of any one politician. And that's ultimately, the Fed has some regulatory responsibilities too. But what's at issue here is who should control the supply of money. We think about the Fed as setting interest rates, but that's only indirectly what they do. They target a short-term interest rate by controlling the supply of money. When they want to lower interest rates, they increase the supply of money, and they use that to buy securities like treasuries that banks have on their balance sheet. And that allows banks to loan the money that they're buying those securities with. That's effectively how monetary policy, which is what the Fed does, is called. That's how it works. And Congress has the power to create money under the Constitution. They gave that to the Fed. So now there's this sort of power struggle, which really should be between the president and Congress, but it's being framed as between the president and the Fed. And I'll say again, I'm impressed that market participants seem to understand that monetary policy should be kept independent of the will of any one politician, not independent from oversight. Maybe the Fed's a little bit too independent in some ways. I tend to agree with those arguments. But clearly markets understand that if it got into the hands of any one politician, anybody, they would be tempted, overwhelmingly tempted, to print money without worrying about the long-term inflation consequences.
Yeah, that's the problem with 4-year terms in a sense, is that the president in office is always going to be very motivated to achieve any of their objectives for short-term gain and not worrying about the longer-term ramifications of actions like printing money, throwing the U.S. into a tailspin. And we find ourselves at a point, and this is not news, that we are, heavily extended on the debt front, and a place where already we've sort of taken advantage of that power to print money over an extended period of time. And the reason that we were able to do it is because of the stability and safety that the U.S. economic market has typically found itself in, but those fears have been shaken a bit.
Okay, so that's the issue. Yeah, so what you're bringing up is foreign ownership of things like treasuries and the dollar generally. Yeah, it's definitely connected. You wouldn't want to own treasuries if you thought the interest payments were going to be made with money conjured up out of thin air. They're going, in real terms, you're going to lose purchasing power. This is true of domestic investors too. So that's a slightly different but equally important angle. And there are many such angles, which is why the volatility that we are witnessing is permeating many different markets. Currency, you've heard about the dollar weakening, which might be due to the effects that you were talking about, Paul. We've heard about treasury yields rising, related to the dollar weakening, of course, and related perhaps to lack of confidence in the U.S. maintaining the purchasing power of the dollar. It gets complicated, is my point.
Yeah, the U.S. dollar index now sits at its lowest level in the last 3 years. In terms of the S&P 500, Mark, I've been out for a couple of days. Are we sitting at, 6 or 7% down year to date on the S&P?
It's more like 12 at this point, isn't it, after yesterday?
Yesterday was 3.
12.1 year to date. I'm rounding up a little bit. Month to date, you're right. Month to date, we're down about 8.
Yep.
Several percentage points month to date, as you talked about at the beginning.
And then 1.5, and then potentially being called back today.
It's hard to keep track at this point because the moves have been so large, as you pointed out.
This would be the worst S&P 500 performance since Inauguration Day for any president since the data that we had going back to 1928. And some of the other areas of the market that have been impacted and been moving significantly. Gold has really risen dramatically over the course of the last several months or so. It had topped $3,500 an ounce. Now today it sits at just shy of $3,500, but still up close to about 0.6% on today's trading. So,
and another way to think about that is the dollar is weakening relative to gold. Gold is a currency of sorts. It is a store value of sorts for historical reasons. It maintains that characteristic, if you like. So when gold goes up, it takes more dollars to purchase, say, an ounce of gold. That's just a different way of saying the dollar is weakening relative to gold. Just like when we say the exchange rate goes down, I think when most people hear that, they think that means the dollar is somehow weakening, which just means it takes more dollars to buy a Japanese yen or a euro or a Great Britain pound or whatever.
The biggest story that we've covered over the last couple of days or so is President Trump going after Fed Chairman Jerome Powell, and Mark alluded to it in some of his comments. And it does seem like here there's a piece in the Wall Street Journal titled "Trump is laying the groundwork to blame Powell for any downturn." And that shares or echoes sentiments that sort of rattle around in my head when I saw the initial news come out that President Trump had posted on Truth Social on Monday that there is virtually no inflation, calling Jerome Powell Mr. Too Late and a major loser for not reducing interest rates immediately. And let's just tackle this from the economic perspective piece here, where you have tariffs looming out there. Some are already in place, but even more significant ones looming, which would create inflationary pressure. So to counter the point that there's virtually no inflation, yes, inflation has come down from the highs that it was at in 2022. However, there are things on the economic horizon that could make inflation much more substantial than we've seen, which leads to the fact that's why the Federal Reserve has held
I'm glad
off.
the president's bringing this up because it allows us to think about what monetary policy is, what the Fed is for, why it's independent in the first place. So he says there's no inflation. Well, that's obvious. That's actually, there was no inflation last month. Mm-hmm. So in a way, that's true. We know the consumer price index went down minus 0.1% month over month. That's likely to be fleeting. But in a very narrow way, what the president said is actually right. Mm-hmm. There was disinflation. There was deflation, technically, last month. Now, your point is, yeah, but we know that's not representative of the real picture. What's the trend in inflation? What's underlying inflation? That's why we have core, which strips out food and energy. There are other measures like the median that we talk about a lot that filter out big price increases or decreases, no matter what sector they originate from, that better gets at the trend in inflation. So the president, in a very strict sense, was actually right. And I think it's good that the issues at least being raised. Now, I don't agree with compromising the Fed's independence. I think that would probably be devastating. Every researcher who's ever looked at any country and its degree of central bank, which is what the Fed is, its degree of central bank independence has concluded that the degree of independence is positively related to the degree to which inflation is under control. Everybody who's ever looked at it in any time, in any country, has concluded that. So the president's wrong in that sense, but he's right. We've had some deflation very recently. Can we count on that continuing? Probably not. Should the Fed, in a knee-jerk fashion, lower rates in response to 1 month's deflation? Probably not. But I think it's not illegitimate to have the discussion. Too many people, when the president comes up, they have a knee-jerk, and I sometimes do it too because he's so provocative.
Right.
But it's good to step back and think about, what is the point there? What's the counterpoint? Let's talk through this rationally. No, he's wrong in this case, but it is good to think about the direction in which inflation might be heading and what the appropriate response to the Fed should be. There are almost two issues. You can make a case that the Fed should be easing. I don't agree with it, I don't think. I think the bulk of the evidence is on the other side of that argument right now.
What would the case to easing be, that we've made so much progress on the inflationary front?
I think, look, a Fed policymaker has to weigh two things: output and the degree to which it's above or below trend, and inflation and the degree to which it's above or below the Fed's target. This is a common construct for central bank policymakers.
And employment kind of well.
That employment is in the output gap.
Right.
So there are two terms, if you like, in the Fed's, I'm going to put this in quotes, function. We all have a welfare function. Yours is, am I taking care of the kids? Am I doing what I need to be? The Fed's welfare function is output. One eye is on output, the other eye, so to speak, is on inflation. The argument for lowering the Fed funds rate target right now is that the output gap has narrowed a lot. We went from maybe overheating a little bit last couple of years to perhaps undershooting right now. A lot of forecasters are calling for very slow growth in the next, say, 6 months. They might be wrong, of course. If you put more weight on that outcome, you ignore that inflation might still be a little elevated, and you cut preemptively, as the president, I think, said. I don't agree with his interpretation of the evidence, but it's not like he's not making a valid point. If the problem is that he's impinging on Fed independence when he calls Powell a loser and says he can't wait till he gets terminated. That's where he goes too far.
Right.
And that's why markets sort of freaked out yesterday. But there is a legitimate point underneath all the bluster.
There's certainly a lot to get to with this topic, so we'll touch on that a little bit more here. We're going to take a break right here. We'll touch a little bit more on Jerome Powell, the Fed chairman, and President Trump, and the ongoing wars back and forth, or mostly from Trump's side of things. And we'll also be talking about...
one guy's getting hit in the face, the other guy's saying, please stop.
And then we'll also talk about the Justice Department, which has a big case with Google coming up. That's right after this break here.
Market volatility is at its highest point since the pandemic. Keep it here for the most comprehensive coverage of the global trade war. This is the Financial Exchange Radio Network.
The breadth of the stock market sell-off in recent days hasn't been seen since the early days of the pandemic. And while it's easy to say don't panic, if you're concerned about your portfolio, given the impact of these tariffs, now's the time to have that conversation. Hi, this is Mike Armstrong from the Armstrong Advisory Group. If the market correction has you anxious, or worse, rattled, give us a call at 800-393-4001. Let's get together and talk through your financial strategy, evaluate its strengths and weaknesses, and make decisions for the future that are in your best interest. These are challenging times, but we've dealt with them before and are prepared to deal with them again. Our goal is to help you protect the assets that you've worked so hard to attain. You can give us a call at 800-393-4001 and request a no-obligation consultation. That number again is 800-393-4001.
The proceeding was paid for by Armstrong Advisory Group, a registered investment advisor. Nothing in the ad or in any Armstrong guide is specific financial, legal, or tax advice. Consult your own financial, tax, and estate planning advisors before making any investment decisions. Armstrong may contact you to offer investment advisory services. Beneficiary planning and asset protection go hand in hand. Cushing & Dolan has a new guide out called How to Leave Assets to Beneficiaries, and it can help make your planning process smooth and easy. Leaving your assets to your children isn't as simple as it sounds, especially if they have problems of their own. If you're retired or nearing retirement, it's time to consider the best way to keep your assets in your family while avoiding significant financial consequences down the road. Call Cushing & Dolan right now at 866-848-5699 and get their new guide called How to Leave Assets to Beneficiaries. You'll learn which paths are the safest when it comes to protecting yourself and your children while avoiding unnecessary risks that can create substantial problems in the long run. That number again is 866-848-5699. Or you can request it online from our website, LegalExchangeShow.com. That's LegalExchangeShow.com. The proceeding was paid for and the views expressed are solely those of Cushing & Dolan. Cushing & Dolan and or Armstrong Advisory may contact you offering legal or investment services. Cushing & Dolan and Armstrong Advisory do not endorse each other and are not affiliated.
One of the keys to enjoying a peaceful retirement is flexibility. Hi, this is Chuck Zada from the Armstrong Advisory Group. Today, retirement planning involves lots of possible changes and challenges given all of the external factors that may affect your goals. So creating a budget for your retirement is vital to financial stability. Retirement comes with a number of monetary considerations, from how much money you'll need every month to managing your existing investments through market volatility. Our new guide is called How to Build a Retirement Budget, and it will offer a variety of options for your consideration that may lessen your risks when it comes to your planning. Call right now at 800-393-4001 and ask for our new guide today. That's 800-393-4001, or request it online from our website, armstrongadvisory.com. That's armstrongadvisory.com.
The proceeding was paid for by Armstrong Advisory Group, a registered investment advisor. Nothing in the ad or in any Armstrong guide is specific financial, legal, or tax advice. Consult your own financial, tax, and estate planning advisors before making any investment decisions. Armstrong may contact you to offer investment advisory services.
Here at the Massachusetts Department of Elementary and Secondary Education, we are committed to all students not only attending, but succeeding at school. Your presence is powerful. Share why you attend at doe.mass.edu.
Sponsored by the Massachusetts Department of Elementary and Secondary Education.
Let's talk LDL. AKA bad cholesterol. The higher your LDL cholesterol, the higher your risk of a heart attack or stroke. Your health matters. Know your number. Talk to your doctor and get your cholesterol checked. And learn how to help lower your LDL bad cholesterol. Because your health is in your hands. Find out more at heart.org/LDL.
Breaking business and financial news first throughout the day. Only here on the Financial Exchange Radio Network.
This segment of the Financial Exchange is brought to you in part by the U.S. Virgin Islands Department of Tourism. The U.S. Virgin Islands are St. Croix, St. Thomas, and St. John, and they're the perfect place to take your next vacation. Enjoy spectacular beaches, world-class cuisine, and a wide variety of water sports. Don't miss your chance to visit America's Caribbean paradise, the United States Virgin Islands. Go to visitusvi.com for more information and to book your trip today. That's visitusvi.com.
Before the break, we were discussing President Trump's recent comments regarding Fed Chairman Jerome Powell and his lack of action in taking proactive measures to cut interest rates, and the things that we were discussing that loom out there as concerns for the Federal Reserve is certainly the impact of tariffs on the inflationary front, as well as trying to just monitor the U.S. economic growth and what impact it could have on the labor market here. Anything else, Mark, that you want to touch upon just on the independence of the Fed and sort of where we go from here? I mean, certainly these messages to me, I do think it is worth reiterating that clearly a bit of laying the ground for the Fed to be the scapegoat with these types of messages leading into some of the economic policies that could be coming down the road.
It could be. I don't think that's going to work. People know the economy was strong a few months ago.
Yep.
They know forecasts deteriorated in response to tariffs. At the time, the proponents of tariffs were saying they might cause economic pain. They were very candid about it. Mm-hmm. They probably should have stuck to that line rather than now scrambling to find another party to blame for things somewhat coming apart at the seams relative, again, to the position we found ourselves at the beginning of the year. I'll say again, I think a conversation about Fed independence is good. It's healthy because we take it for granted and because it's not something we've had to talk about in the past 30 years. It's been taken as kind of revealed truth that it was a good thing, to the point where we got this great inheritance of stable inflation until COVID, but that has since subsided. Yep. I don't like the way Powell handled it, but the blame was not entirely with him, certainly not for the surge in inflation. Arguably, he didn't tamp it down quickly enough, but there are plenty of accomplished scholars who don't think he could have done anything different, or should have, or could have, for that matter, done anything differently. So I think the conversation is healthy. The raising the prospect of depriving the Fed of independence for reasons we discussed in the last segment is not healthy, as evidenced by market reaction. And that's really all you can say at this point. Maybe the president drops it. He dropped it in 2018 and this was a common feature of his first term, browbeating he replaced the Fed chair. We forget this, but Powell's his guy.
I know. Yes,
he took Janet
that's the
Yellen.
ironic part.
He took most presidents have reappointed Fed chairs unless they were utterly incompetent or unsuited for the role. It's hard to think of one in recent history that didn't get reappointed for solely political reasons. In fact, I can't think of one. Reagan inherited Volcker, reappointed him, then he didn't. But that was okay. Volcker served 2 terms. There was no love loss, I don't think, between him and the Reagan administration. But anyway, Clinton reappointed Greenspan. Obama, jumping ahead a little bit, Obama reappointed Bernanke. It's just something that you typically do. Trump fired, effectively, Janet Yellen. Unclear why. Powell's his guy, and almost immediately he soured on Powell. The president is who he is, and this is why many of his supporters like him. He is mercurial and keeps other people on their toes. Some people like that. Markets generally don't, and people making long-term investments generally don't. So hopefully this all just kind of goes away.
Sure.
I don't know if that's a realistic prospect, probably just wishful thinking.
We'll continue to follow it.
Yeah.
The Justice Department urges tough action to break Google's search dominance. So the antitrust case headlines have really been heating up over the course of the last couple of weeks specific to Google. We had a federal judge last Thursday ruled that Google created a monopoly that allowed it to control parts of the online advertising industry. Google has about 90% of the global search market. So in terms of its percentage of market share, it is right up there from a monopoly perspective. But the tricky thing will be here is that federal judge ruling is the second one that we've seen in the last 8 months that have indicated some sort of correlation or credence to the idea that Google created a monopoly. The Justice Department is different. These other cases that I'm alluding to here by federal judges don't have a direct impact on the case that we're about to hear with the Justice Department, but some of the measures that have been mentioned as part of this Justice Department case is forcing the sale of some of the company's advertising products for Google, forcing the sell-off of its Google Chrome browsing business, and not allowing Google to be the default search engine on your smartphone. So for any iPhone user out there, if you are to search something in the Safari browser in your iPhone, Google is the default search engine that you'll get. If you say pizza joints in Portland, Maine, or Cape Cod, you are going to get Google search results. And Google pays $20 billion a year for that privilege of being the default search browser on Apple Safari. A lot of people execute many Google searches on their phones, so being that default browser is really important there. We're going to take a quick break here on the Financial Exchange. When we come back, we're going to cover Wall Street Watch and a little bit more on antitrust and some free trade zone talk. That's right after this break.
Like us on Facebook and follow us on Twitter @TFE Show. Breaking business news is always first, right here on the Financial Exchange Radio Network. New Englanders love the Caribbean, and now there's a Caribbean travel channel available for you to learn all about Caribbean culture while you're planning your next trip to your favorite island. The TravelShareIt.com marketplace is loaded with information about the arts, festivals, food, and music throughout the Caribbean, and is an interactive website featuring daily travel deals to any island of your choice. Book your next Caribbean vacation on the most comprehensive travel channel for the islands, TravelShareIt.com. That's TravelShareIt.com. Leaving assets to your beneficiaries is a critical piece of any estate plan. Cushing & Dolan, the experts in elder law, has written a new guide that may help ensure that your assets are protected for years to come, while helping you avoid unnecessary mistakes during your planning. As an example, the new federal estate tax exemption is nearly $14 million. That could lead to a larger inheritance for your family members, but still raises concerns. There are several strategies in this new guide that will help you learn how to make the right decisions about your distributions at the right time. Cushing & Dolan have been helping New England families for more than 30 years. Let them help you, too. Call 866-848-5699 and get their brand new guide called How to Leave Assets to Beneficiaries. That number again is 866-848-5699. Or you can request the guide online by visiting LegalExchangeShow.com. The proceeding was paid for and the views expressed are solely those of Cushing & Dolan. Cushing & Dolan and or Armstrong Advisory may contact you offering legal or investment services. Cushing & Dolan and Armstrong Advisory do not endorse each other and are not affiliated.
This is Michael Valila, Adjutant of the Disabled American Veterans Department of Massachusetts. The DAV of Massachusetts has helped me and countless others adjust to civilian life through a variety of incredible programs. Through our local Veterans Assistance Program, we provide necessary services to veterans and their communities, such as food shopping, landscaping, and companionship, but we need your support. You can help by making a donation today. Please visit dav5k.boston. That's dav5k.boston.
Hey, listen, are you a 50-year-old person looking for term life insurance? Then you need to talk to Bob. Bob specializes in helping people find $1 million or more of term life insurance for a couple of $100 a month. Look, you need to know there's a price war in the term life insurance business, and you may be paying too much. Call Bob, and he'll shop and see how much money he can save you. Look, this could be the last term life insurance policy you ever have. Your rates are guaranteed for the next 20 years. That's right, guaranteed level rates for the next 20 years. And if you're a smoker or your health is not perfect, Bob has great rates for you too. So for $1 million of term life insurance coverage for a couple of $100 a month, call Bob right now. 800-965-7987. 800-965-7987. 800-965-7987. That's 800-965-7987. Paid for by Term Direct.
Hi, this is Chuck and Mike from the Armstrong Advisory Group, and we have a guide available this month titled How to Build a Retirement Budget. Mike, one of the rules of thumb that gets tossed around is, hey, just withdraw 4% of your portfolio each year and you'll be fine. Is that true still?
It can be, but it also leads to some confusing conversations because that 4% rule, one, is dependent on a very specific asset allocation that was recommended by the person that created it. And two, a lot of those things have changed over time and doesn't really account for the fluctuations that every retiree sees, right? You might retire and not start Social Security right away, in which case your withdrawals could be higher for a period of time.
What about on the other side of the ledger when you look at expenses? A lot of people say, well, I expect my expenses to go down. Maybe I only need 70 to 80% of my pre-retirement income.
Yeah, I mean, this one makes sense, right? Like, you know, you're right now making money. You might be putting money into your 401k, paying FICA taxes that you won't in retirement. But this one especially, I have to say, varies a lot from person to person. That's 70 to 80% of pre-retirement income. And think about it this way, right? Do I still have a mortgage? Might that mortgage get paid off at some point in my retirement? What sort of debts do I have? Am I going to downsize to one car? Are we going to need both? What sort of travel am I planning on? And so that 70 to 80% rule can be a good starting point, but really you need to start with the budget.
Our guide is titled How to Build a Retirement Budget, and the way to request it is by calling 800-393-4001. That number again is 800-393-4001 to request our latest guide, How to Build a Retirement Budget.
The proceeding was paid for by Armstrong Advisory Group, a registered investment advisor. Nothing in the ad or in any Armstrong guide is specific financial, legal, or tax advice. Consult your own financial, tax, and estate planning advisors before making any investment decisions. Armstrong may contact you to offer investment advisory services. Time now for Wall Street Watch, a complete look at what's moving markets so far today, right here on the Financial Exchange Radio Network.
All right, markets are largely in the green right now. The Dow Jones is up just under 700 points. The S&P 500 is up over 87 points, or 1.7%. And then the NASDAQ is up over 300 points, or 1.91%. GE Aerospace stock has moved up over 4% after GE Aerospace reported adjusted earnings of $1.49 per share, topping the $1.27 per share anticipated. Revenue, however, came in just shy of expectations. Hertz Global Holdings shares are up over 11% after the rental car company rallied 112% last week on Bill Ackman's big investment in the company. Pershing Square has taken a 19.8% stake in Hertz with outright share ownership and total return swap. The stock had fallen over 5% yesterday. 3M shares are up over 7.5% after first quarter results beat expectations. On an adjusted basis, 3M earned $1.88 per share on $5.78 billion of revenue. Analysts had penciled in $1.77 per share and $5.76 billion of revenue. Amazon shares are up just under 3% even though Amazon had delayed some commitments around new data center leases, particularly international ones. Verizon shares are down over 1% after Verizon said it lost more postpaid net phone subscribers during the last quarter than were expected. The company still beat forecasts for first quarter earnings and revenue and said it remains confident in achieving its year-end goals. Lockheed Martin shares are down over 2% even after Lockheed posted a strong first quarter profit and reaffirmed its forecast for the year, driven by resilient demand for its missile systems and fighter jets. I am Ben Kitchen, and that was Wall Street Watch.
Touching a little bit more on the antitrust case that we see here tied to Google, the Justice Department is set to hear arguments over the course of the next couple weeks here as to whether or not Google should break up some of its global advertising business, claiming that they have a monopoly on the search market. As I was mentioning before the break, 90% of the global search market is through Google, and they pay a significant sum to Apple to be the default search engine on its browser. Some of the measures that have been mentioned are the idea of selling off Google Chrome, as well as divesting of some of the company's advertising products. And it seems to be a different day for antitrust, Mark. It's always been very challenging in the United States, any company to get any sort of real charges levied against them on the antitrust front. But certainly back in the 1990s, it really did some harm to Microsoft's business, though it did not have to break up. There were a lot of time and effort and energy spent trying to battle the antitrust department. So it'll be interesting to see what happens here on Google's front.
Yeah, and what precedent that sets for other tech giants. These companies are so much bigger in today's dollars than companies that we associate with monopoly practices in past eras. Amazon, Apple, Google, they're all worth between $1 and $2 trillion. Standard Oil, somebody wrote recently, Rockefeller's oil monopoly in a legal sense that was busted up, $33 billion. So a fraction, literally, of the market value in today's dollars of today's tech giants. The argument for breaking them up is that it's killing innovation. They buy competitors. I know Chuck and you and Mike Armstrong talk about this all the time, so I'm probably starting at too elementary a level here, but they can snuff potential competitors out in the cradle. I know that's a horrible analogy, but that's effectively what they do.
Yep.
And they put this in Zuckerberg puts this kind of stuff in emails. We got to buy them. They could compete with us. It's basically what he said. So it's no secret.
Yep.
So it's probably better as reluctant as a free market fanatic like me is to interfere. If a company gets really big, God bless them. More power to them. Fact is, they often use that power for ends that are economically in an overall welfare sense detrimental. So when something gets too big, you just got to break it up. And shareholders could benefit. You get stock on a pro-rata basis, as I understand it, in the newly created companies, and they'll probably, not guaranteed, but probably grow faster because they've got more freedom to innovate.
The challenging thing has always been for the Justice Department is to prove harm to U.S. consumers. Certainly businesses on the innovation side, I think it's easy to make those arguments, but on the consumer side of things, it can be a little bit more difficult to make that justification. In general, it seems as if all companies are trying to get a sense for what the mergers and acquisition markets is going to look like under Trump's administration. There was a lot of optimism when he was elected that there would be a huge push for deregulation, and perhaps this would open up the floodgates in terms of activity on the financial industry and the merger side of things. Though we did see some pretty big mergers over the course of the last couple months or so, the deal activity is not nearly what we've seen in the past. The notable ones, of course, were Capital One and Discover. That was a significant merger that may have seen more scrutiny under the Biden administration. That was a $35 billion acquisition that just received approval within the last week or so. And then it will be interesting to see Google, not only are they battling this antitrust case, but also they have gone out and acquired a cybersecurity startup, Wiz, for $32 billion. How that gets through from an approval perspective will be something to track as well.
Yeah, the standard here is interesting because it's not really consumer welfare anymore. You would think that you'd have to document in a sort of concrete way harm to look. You bought this company and then prices went up.
Right.
The degree to which prices went up is a pretty concrete, black and white measure of how worse off people were. That's not really the standard that they applied here, though. This is not my area, but a quick Google search reveals maybe they've directing me toward a tainted.
Got you sucked in.
Oh yeah, it's my first. Where else do you go? Do you go anywhere else when you want a quick fact? What do you?
You know what I was going to say is that they are facing competition from ChatGPT. I really feel like these large language models out there are going to make inroads.
So let me ask you a question. Yeah. When you ask ChatGPT a question, does it give you a source for its answer, or does it just give you the answer? It does.
It does give a list of sources.
Okay.
A
so
little
it's comparable
bubble
to the
yes
to the results you get from Google.
But it's more text. It's more text that's provided and less of the sourcing.
It's not trying to drive you to somebody's
exactly,
website for money.
Exactly.
Which is Google's bread and butter.
Yeah.
Okay.
And the clarity of the answer. I was having this discussion with family recently where the amount of information and the way it's delivered is much more clear and thoughtfully articulated as opposed to what Google search has become. And I was reluctant to admit this. Chuck was the one who really pushed this hard, that Google search has worsened significantly over the last decade or so. I couldn't wrap my mind around that because you think the more searches that they have, just the more powerful the engine becomes.
That's how it's supposed to work.
But ultimately, to your point, it seems the focus is much more driving traffic to a specific area. And the idea of, Chuck had posed this out, Googling what is the cost of an avocado would more likely to merit you places to go purchase avocados rather than just answering your question of what is the average cost of an avocado, for example. Whereas on ChatGPT, probably because it's in its infancy and they just want to get mass adoption, there is none of that. It is much more thoroughness of answers.
So the hope in breaking them up is that we get better results from smaller, more innovative company. My guess is we're going to converge on the same place where we are today, given the economics, the attractive economics from directing people to preferred websites. Well, this isn't my area. I'm not even going to speculate. All I can conclude from all this is if a company gets too big, and maybe this is a good rule, we're just going to break it up. If you've got a 90%, that seems to be the overriding imperative here. When something gets too big, 90%, or I don't know if 90% is the threshold. Maybe it is quantifiable. Maybe it isn't. We're going to break it up. Bigness is unhealthy. It stifles competition. I'm looking at the Justice Department's complaint, which the judge echoed in their decision. I don't know whether it was the browser or digital advertising, a finding of a monopoly decision, but the alleged harm was it hurts publishing consumers. I guess this is in the case of search. Hurts the competitive process, et cetera, all very vague.
Can we even come up with, the three of us, more than two other search engines besides Google?
Well, Google's the number one. YouTube is actually the number two. And people always leave that out of the equation. It's overwhelmingly number two. But I actually have a list of the top 10 search engines in the world.
All right. I'll try and see if I can get a couple. DuckDuckGo, does that crack the top 10?
Number 6.
Bing.
Number 2.
Then it's going to be international ones that I'm not as familiar with, so I'm going to bow out here, Mark, unless you can throw any of the top 10 together.
Well, we've got Yandex.ru, a Russian search engine.
I'm not going to come up with that one.
That's number 3. Baidu, out of China.
Oh, sure.
Number 5. Naver, out of South Korea, number 7. AOL. Hey, look at you, AOL. Number 8. Quant from France at number 9. Okay. And Ecosia from Germany at number 10.
Gotcha. That rounds out the top 10. But still, as we were mentioning, Google taking 90% of the global market share. So while there may be a top 10 list, Google is a behemoth there. So it'll be interesting to see what we get out of all these court cases and specifically the Justice Department here as we follow it. I mean, this will take a long time to sort out. We're going to take a quick break here on the Financial Exchange, but when we come back, we're going to be talking a little bit more about tariffs as well as Vance's call for closer U.S.-India ties as trade talks are progressing. That's right after this break here on the Financial Exchange.
Tariffs fears continue to grip markets. Get the latest straight from Wall Street right here on the Financial Exchange Radio Network. Consistently voted one of the top Caribbean destinations, the United States Virgin Islands is the perfect place for your next vacation. Whether you're looking for a romantic getaway, a long weekend with friends, or a family vacation, St. Croix, St. Thomas, and St. John have everything you need to enjoy that special time away from home. Take advantage of a variety of incredible promotions that are available right now. Go to visitusvi.com/promotions, where you'll find the details about all of these amazing experiences, including a stay at the Divi Carina Bay all-inclusive beach resort and casino on St. Croix. From the moment you arrive, you'll fall naturally in rhythm with the heartbeat of the islands. There's no money to exchange, and travel from New England could not be easier. Don't miss your chance to enjoy America's Caribbean paradise, the United States Virgin Islands. Head to visitusvi.com/promotions for more information and to book your trip today. That's visitusvi.com/promotions. Beneficiary planning and asset protection go hand in hand. Cushing & Dolan has a new guide out called How to Leave Assets to Beneficiaries, and it can help make your planning process smooth and easy. Leaving your assets to your children isn't as simple as it sounds, especially if they have problems of their own. If you're retired or nearing retirement, it's time to consider the best way to keep your assets in your family while avoiding significant financial consequences down the road. Call Cushing & Dolan right now at 866-848-5699 and get their new guide called How to Leave Assets to Beneficiaries. You'll learn which paths are the safest when it comes to protecting yourself and your children while avoiding unnecessary risks that can create substantial problems in the long run. That number again is 866-848-5699. Or you can request it online from our website, LegalExchangeShow.com. That's LegalExchangeShow.com. The proceeding was paid for, and the views expressed are solely those of Cushing & Dolan. Cushing & Dolan and or Armstrong Advisory may contact you offering legal or investment services. Cushing & Dolan and Armstrong Advisory do not endorse each other and are not affiliated.
Hey, listen, are you a 50-year-old person looking for term life insurance? Then you need to talk to Bob. Bob specializes in helping people find $1 million or more of term life insurance for a couple of $100 a month. Look, you need to know there's a price war in the term life insurance business, and you may be paying too much. Call Bob, and he'll shop and see how much money he can save you. Look, this could be the last term life insurance policy you ever have. Your rates are guaranteed for the next 20 years. That's right, guaranteed level rates for the next 20 years. And if you're a smoker or your health is not perfect, Bob has great rates for you too. So for $1 million of term life insurance coverage for a couple of $100 a month, call Bob right now. 800-965-7987. 800-965-7987. 800-965-7987. That's 800-965-7987. Paid for by Term Direct.
Environmental nonprofit Ocean River Institute is working with communities to tackle climate change with nature-based solutions that feature slowing water down and building more soil with grasses and plants. Research indicates that people acting in their own neighborhoods can build an inch of soil in a year and slow sea level rise down by as much as 25%. Please visit oceanriver.org for more information on opportunities to make a difference and go the distance for savvy stewardship of a greener and bluer planet Earth.
As a busy mom to 4 kids, my to-do list is full.
Trying to fit in exercise, eating right, and prioritizing self-care can feel next to impossible.
While we can't add more hours to the day, we do have a great resource to help.
Go Red for Women has easy tips, tools, and information to help you and your family live a healthier life.
So to all the moms, the aunts, the grandmothers, and amazing women out there doing it all,
visit goredforwomen.org/momlife today.
You take care of them, Go Red for Women will take care of you.
Miss any of the show? Catch up at your convenience by visiting financialexchangeshow.com and clicking the on-demand icon where you'll find all of our interviews and full shows. This is your home for the latest business and financial news in New England and around the country. This is the Financial Exchange Radio Network.
Coming back from the break here, we've still got markets rallying quite a bit today. The Dow Jones up over 700 points. The S&P 500 is up almost close to 2%. And the NASDAQ is up a little over 2% today as Wall Street looks to rebound from what was a rough Monday where major indices were off over 2%. We shift our gears back to discussing just a piece out of the Wall Street Journal that kind of gauges the impact of some individual companies out there of these recent 145% tariffs on Chinese goods. In this piece, they discuss a truck full of fake eyelashes that came to a screeching halt in Mexico. I'm disappointed I won't be able to get my eyelashes from this company in time, as they've been shelved here. But all sorts of various knickknack goods like this have been put on pause for the time being, just trying to await further clarification on what trade policies are going to look like going forward. So in this instance of the fake eyelashes, they have been halted and sort of stored in Mexico just shy of the U.S. border. They had been imported from China, which is a specialist in a particular area to make these fake eyelashes. And the same applies for some other businesses out there, both in the children's toy sector and others that really are just solely either based in China, or even if you wanted to manufacture the goods here, many of the products come from China.
Yeah, everything's topsy-turvy right now.
Yep.
There are lots of examples. Not all of them are as colorful or disturbing. If you think about a cargo container full of allegedly fake eyelashes, it's China, so they could.
I was joking.
They could have
about
plucked
the fake
them off
eyelashes,
prison.
just to clarify.
They could be
for
plucked
everyone
off
out there.
Political dissidents in China. We don't know where they came from, I guess. But anyway, yeah, lots of anecdotes like this. I guess this isn't an anecdote. There's it is and it isn't. It's just an example of the uncertainty that the on-again, off-again tariff policy is wreaking. It's not tariffs per se that are, although I don't like them, that there are first best solutions, and there's tariffs are like a third best solution. They're not the best way to bring manufacturing back if that's your goal, or whatever. If your goal is to plug the deficit, there are better ways to do it. That aside, there are also better ways to implement tariffs, which is announce them and stick with them and stop the on-again, off-again, changing by the day or by the week rhythm we've seen so far. Nobody knows what to rely on right now.
And when you're at, 145% is almost effectively an embargo, just with how financially detrimental that can be to businesses out there, where, for this company here, it's going to be more than the cost of the goods on the cargo itself to pay that type of tariff. So certainly we'll continue to monitor a lot of businesses out there impacted by those tariffs.
Beneficiary planning and asset protection go hand in hand. Cushing & Dolan has a new guide out called How to Leave Assets to Beneficiaries, and it can help make your planning process smooth and easy. Leaving your assets to your children isn't as simple as it sounds, especially if they have problems of their own. If you're retired or nearing retirement, it's time to consider the best way to keep your assets in your family while avoiding significant financial consequences down the road. Call Cushing & Dolan right now at 866-848-5699 and get their new guide called How to Leave Assets to Beneficiaries. You'll learn which paths are the safest when it comes to protecting yourself and your children while avoiding unnecessary risks that can create substantial problems in the long run. That number again is 866-848-5699, or you can request it online from our website, LegalExchangeShow.com. That's LegalExchangeShow.com.
The proceeding was paid for, and the views expressed are solely those of Cushing & Dolan. Cushing & Dolan and/or Armstrong Advisory may contact you offering legal or investment services. Cushing and Armstrong do not endorse each other and are not affiliated.
President Trump hosted CEOs of Walmart, Target, and Home Depot for a tariff meeting. I believe that was held yesterday. It seemed to be positive sentiment from discussions, but really nothing concrete here that was taken away from any of the meetings. Obviously, these companies out there, Walmart, for example, imports about one-third of its imports come from around the globe, China and Mexico being some of the most significant suppliers out there. Target, for example, certainly has a lot of impact here on the import front. So some major CEOs trying to get a seat at the table to discuss some of these tariffs, but nothing here that was, significant takeaway from this meeting here.
Yeah, this is an example of one of the sad side effects of the way tariff policy is being conducted right now. Economists refer to this type of behavior as rent-seeking. And that sounds like a fancy term, but it just means we all start to do things, not to grow our own wealth and grow the economy, but just protect what we've got. Rent-seeking. It's called that, I think, because rents are typically viewed as non-earned income and somehow less noble than somebody rolling up their sleeves and going to work. Oh, you're just a rent seeker. You're a capitalist sitting around earning your interest. Those aren't entirely the same things, but that's what rent seeking means. And I use this as kind of a teachable moment. Not that I'm qualified to teach anybody this stuff. I'm kind of reteaching myself this stuff too. This is an example of how things get redirected, resources get redirected, and these CEOs' time is presumably a valuable resource given what they get paid, get redirected toward inefficient things like having to suck up to the president, which is what they're doing. They're going there to suck up and begging for exceptions.
Yep.
That's not helpful to long-term growth and probably not helpful to short-term economic growth.
Not innovative. Yeah, sure.
Yeah, right.
Certainly.
It's a waste of their time.
Yeah.
The politician likes it, of course, because they feel important. Look who's coming to bend the knee, an expression you hear a lot now, which you probably shouldn't in a free country, but we're hearing it a lot now. And again, it's just solely from an economic point of view, forgetting about the political angle. It's sad because it's going to be a drag on long-term growth if we don't clean up our act here.
Taking a look around at markets, the major indices are rallying quite a bit today. We've got the Dow Jones up over 700 points, or 1.92%. The S&P 500 also up close to 100 points, or about 2%. And the NASDAQ is up over 2% through early trading here. The Russell 2000 also is up close to about 1.5%. Taking a look at the U.S. 10-year Treasury, it still sits in and around 4.4%, not really moving significantly today. And oil is up about 1.5%, with it sitting around $64 a barrel. That's all the time that we have for the first hour of the Financial Exchange, but we've got a jam-packed second hour, including a preview of Tesla's earnings and much, much more. That's right after this break here on the Financial Exchange. Stick with us.
Retirement planning is complicated enough without having a formal budget to help you maintain your lifestyle during your later years. This is Mike Armstrong from the Armstrong Advisory Group. Our new guide called How to Build a Retirement Budget was written specifically for this purpose. Our goal is to help take your financial concerns out of your retirement years. There are numerous issues to deal with when creating a retirement budget. Everything from understanding where your income will come from, to setting up a proper withdrawal strategy, to being able to remain flexible as market conditions change. This new guide offers structural guidance that may alleviate the pressures of creating your budget. You can request your copy right now by calling 800-393-4001 and ask for our new guide today. Once again, that number, 800-393-4001.
The proceeding was paid for by Armstrong Advisory Group, a registered investment advisor. Nothing in the ad or in any Armstrong guide is specific financial, legal, or tax advice. Consult your own financial, tax, and estate planning advisors before making any investment decisions. Armstrong may contact you to offer investment advisory services.
It happens all over Massachusetts.
Can you tie my shoes?
In every home and every community.
Be careful on your bike.
Learning can happen anytime, anywhere.
We'll see you at practice this weekend.
And no matter how learning takes place in your family's life, DESE is there as your partner. The Massachusetts Department of Elementary and Secondary Education. Never stop learning. Find out more at mass.gov/back-to-school.
Sponsored by the Massachusetts Department for Elementary and Secondary Education.
Sometimes we know what's next. Other times, it's impossible to know. Life can change in an instant. Don't be caught standing by the next time someone's heart stops. Knowing CPR gives you the ability to act and takes you from bystander to lifesaver. CPR is a life-saving skill. Join the nation of lifesavers today by learning CPR at heart.org/nation. National support for CPR education provided by Elevance Health Foundation.
New Englanders love the Caribbean, and now there's a Caribbean travel channel available for you to learn all about Caribbean culture while you're planning your next trip to your favorite island. The TravelShareIt.com marketplace is loaded with information about the arts, festivals, food, and music throughout the Caribbean, and is an interactive website featuring daily travel deals to any island of your choice. Book your next Caribbean vacation on the most comprehensive travel channel for the islands, TravelShareIt.com. That's TravelShareIt.com. This is the Money Matters Radio Network, WBNW 1120 AM and W275 CM FM, Concord, Boston. The Money Matters Radio Network.
This is Michael Valila, Adjutant of the Disabled American Veterans Department of Massachusetts. We focus on the people returning from service, not their specific illness or injury. Our number one goal is to make sure our veterans have the necessary services they need, be it physical, emotional, or financial, so that their transition can be seamless. You can help our great American heroes as well by making a donation today by visiting dav5k.boston. That's dav5k.boston.
Are you over the age of 50? Want peace of mind and financial security for your family? Here's an important message to you from Senior Care USA. The average funeral now costs over $10,000. That leaves your loved ones the burden of paying your debts and funeral costs. Our plans start as low as $1 per day and will pay your family up to $30,000 to help pay for your funeral and other expenses. There are no medical exams. Your rates will never increase, and your plan cannot be canceled, regardless of your medical conditions, as long as you make your premium payments. Get up to $30,000 in final expense insurance. Call now for free information. Just answer a few simple questions and get approved right over the phone in just a few minutes. Call right now.
Call 800-378-3818. 800-378-3818. 800-378-3818. That's 800-378-3818. Hey, listen, are you a 50-year-old person looking for term life insurance? Then you need to talk to Bob. Bob specializes in helping people find $1 million or more of term life insurance for a couple of $100 a month. Look, you need to know there's a price war in the term life insurance business, and you may be paying too much. Call Bob, and he'll shop and see how much money he can save you. Look, this could be the last term life insurance policy you ever have. Your rates are guaranteed for the next 20 years. That's right, guaranteed level rates for the next 20 years. And if you're a smoker or your health is not perfect, Bob has great rates for you too. So for $1 million of term life insurance coverage for a couple of $100 a month, call Bob right now. 800-965-7987. 800-965-7987. 800-965-7987. That's 800-965-7987. Paid for by Term Direct.
Consistently voted one of the top Caribbean destinations, the United States Virgin Islands is the perfect place for your next vacation. Whether you're looking for a romantic getaway, a long weekend with friends, or a family vacation, St. Croix, St. Thomas, and St. John have everything you need to enjoy that special time away from home. Take advantage of a variety of incredible promotions that are available right now. Go to visitusvi.com/promotions, where you'll find the details about all of these amazing experiences, including a stay at the Divi Carina Bay all-inclusive beach resort and casino on St. Croix. From the moment you arrive, you'll fall naturally in rhythm with the heartbeat of the islands. There's no money to exchange, and travel from New England could not be easier. Don't miss your chance to enjoy America's Caribbean paradise, the United States Virgin Islands. Head to visitusvi.com/promotions for more information and to book your trip today. That's visitusvi.com/promotions.
This is Tucker Silva of the Financial Exchange Show, and I'm joined today by estate planning attorney Todd Lutzke from the law firm of Cushing & Dolan with your Financial Exchange Quick Tip of the Day. And today we're talking about your brand new guide, Todd, how to leave assets to your beneficiaries. Todd, why can't you just add your kids to your accounts or to your house deed?
Well, you can. It's just not a good idea. So people who do that understand with an account, right, you can put a joint name on the account. Now, that doesn't actually complete the gift because you actually have to take the money out and then the gift is complete. But when you set it up, yeah, the asset would avoid probate. But if something happens to the child, it's going to be, available. Half the asset would be subject to the children's creditor. So you don't want that. And secondly, if you only put one kid on the deed, you've likely disinherited the other kids. So it's not really good planning overall. Whereas if you put the house in the kid's name, now you've actually made a completed gift of half the house and would need to file a gift tax return, number one. Number two, of course, it's exposed to the child's creditors and, yes, divorces. You could find yourself at some point owning half your house with an ex-in-law. Not sure that's a good way to plan. So please, put together trusts. Don't just throw names on deeds or on bank accounts because, as I always like to say, nothing good comes from giving assets away while you're living.
The estate planning experts at Cushing & Dolan have been helping families like yours for more than 30 years, and they've written a brand new guide called How to Leave Assets to Your Beneficiaries. To get your free copy of this comprehensive guide that will help you determine the best way to leave assets to your family, simply call 866-848-5699. That's 866-848-5699, or you can request it from their website, legalexchangeshow.com.
The proceeding was paid for, and the views expressed are solely those of Cushing & Dolan. Cushing & Dolan and or Armstrong Advisory may contact you offering legal or investment services. Cushing and Armstrong do not endorse each other and are not affiliated. The Financial Exchange is produced by Money Matters Radio and is hosted by employees of the Armstrong Advisory Group, a registered investment advisor. All opinions expressed are solely those of the hosts, do not reflect the opinions of Armstrong Advisory or anyone else. Investments can lose money. This program does not offer any specific financial or investment advice. Please consult your own financial, tax, and estate planning advisors before making any investment decisions. Armstrong Advisory and the advertisers heard on this program do not endorse each other or their services. Armstrong and Money Matters Radio do not compensate each other for referrals and are not affiliated. This is the Financial Exchange with Paul Lane and Marc Fandetti. Your exclusive look at business and financial news affecting your day, your city, your world. Stay informed and up to date about economic and market trends, plus breaking business news every day. The Financial Exchange is a proud partner of the Disabled American Veterans Department of Massachusetts. Help us support our great American heroes by visiting dav5k.boston and making a donation today. This is the Financial Exchange with Paul Lane and Marc Fandetti.
Kicking off the second hour of the Financial Exchange, Paul Lane, Marc Fandetti, and Ben Kitchen here with you. All U.S. markets up over 2%, making back some of the losses from yesterday's sell-off. We start the second hour of our program by previewing some earnings that we have coming after the bell today. Tesla is going to be reporting its earnings. They had earlier in this month reported that they saw a 13% decline in deliveries. Obviously, they've been in the headlines quite a bit because of Elon Musk's involvement in the Trump administration. The stock is off about 50% from where it was before Trump took office. It had had a significant run-up from November to January, but since then has really cratered quite a bit, and sales are slowing across many different markets. Whether you look at the European market, there's also tremendous challenges that they face in China to gain market share, or rather to maintain market share. They're really losing there. So it'll be interesting to see what we get out of Tesla at the close of market today. It's anticipated that their revenue grew less than 1% for this most recent quarter here. So
yeah, strange reversal of, well, not strange. We know exactly what it's attributable to.
Yeah.
Some of it may be fair, some of it may be unfair. But if you look at analysts who follow the company, their comments have turned from the fine-tuning things he needs to do to how to save it. And you would not have thought that fortunes could have turned that quickly, but those are the risks you take when you become vocal.
Yes, and he being involved in the headlines, yeah, like it seems as if a lot of the buyers have been alienated just because of some of the political views, and it goes back to that Michael Jordan line that we always reference on the show, that both sides buy shoes, or in this case buy electric vehicles. So be interesting. Like I said,
well, actually, but I think the other side disproportionately buy.
Yeah, that's true.
I mean, talk about he knows this. Elon is a very smart guy. Right. I think. Right.
Oh, definitely.
Okay,
definitely.
He knows this, so I guess he thought it was worth it.
The full year results, like I mentioned, probably won't be that tremendous. As I mentioned, the 13% year-over-year drop in vehicles in Q1 has been concerning, and this is coming off a year previously where they had seen slowing sales growth. So that had really been the story with Tesla, that as much as you'd want to beat them up from a valuation perspective, which I think all of us traditional valuation people out there had in terms of what it was trading at from a price to earnings perspective, at least they could previously promise that there's sort of this hockey stick shape revenue growth, but that has really plateaued a bit here. And then the other reason that you'd be a Tesla buyer is just the optimism around Elon Musk and the company's propensity for innovation. And none of those bets have really proven just, in terms of the cyber taxi, the robo-taxis.
Well, I think that's probably the bigger
initiatives.
story. Certainly, the uncertainty around electric vehicle ownership is not quite the way I want to put it, but I'll go with that. 4 years ago, they were shoving these things aggressively down everybody's throat. I almost felt like I'd have to buy one at some point. Now I feel like if I had bought one, I might not be able to charge it because the feds have backed off the larger theme. They're backing off supporting charging infrastructure. This type of whipsawing policy is not helpful. And if I'm feeling it a little itty bit as a consumer, I can only imagine what businesses who have to make investment and in the short term inventory decisions based on, say, tariff policy might be. It's really the uncertainty with respect to prospects for electric vehicles and the degree to which the government will support them has got to be really anxiety provoking for some people. The climate has changed so radically in such a short period, and it could flip back in 3 years or 8 years or whatever.
Yeah, you've seen the major auto manufacturers. First of all, they're dealing with enough as it is with everything that's going on from a tariff front now, but also they had pulled back on a lot of their EV initiatives.
To begin with.
And so there's just really not a lot of momentum there. Not to mention if you're battling on the global market field like Tesla is, you've got a lot of Chinese vehicles that are taking a lot of market share away at some of these subsidized prices. So it's a challenging business environment out there, that is for sure. Piece here from CNBC: as the dollar falters, the world central bank trends a tightrope to devalue their currency or not. As I mentioned earlier in the program, we've seen the dollar index down more than 9% so far this year. Other currencies out there have appreciated against it, such as the Japanese yen and the Swiss franc. So now there's this piece here as to, what we do about that drop in the dollar index, and is that an area of concern?
So the dollar is falling, presumably, and there may be other reasons, but the main story is that people are fleeing U.S. assets. They're fleeing treasuries. They're fleeing stocks. I'm talking about international investors now, and there's hard evidence for this. They have maybe less confidence that, say, the Fed won't inflate our debts away if it comes under political control, or they just don't like the policy uncertainty here generally, or they're doing it out of spite. They're being a little bit vindictive. Oh, you're going to tariff us? We're not going to buy your assets. And it's worth reminding ourselves that all those dollars we send abroad when we buy Chinese goods at Lowe's or Japanese electronics, those dollars get recycled back into U.S. investments. The recycling part into investments is called the capital account. You hear about the current account or the trade deficit a lot. You don't hear about the flip side of that, which is what foreigners do with those dollars. They invest them. The reason is we don't save enough here to support our own investment needs. We're a very attractive investment location, the U.S. is, but we don't save enough. So the point I guess I want to make, getting a little bit sidetracked, but I think it's worthwhile reminding ourselves, myself included, is that the trade deficit is a result of us not saving enough. It's not a result of anybody playing on of stacking the deck against us necessarily. There might be a little bit of that. China might, some currency manipulation might be going on, but that's not the primary reason behind the trade deficit. This article points out that as the dollar has weakened lately because people are fleeing U.S. assets, other countries are now finding themselves in a less favorable competitive position. If you're a Japanese exporter, your exports just got more expensive because the yen is appreciating.
Right.
So now the Japanese central bank has to think about, Bank of Japan has to think about the yen, its value, and how it makes how its monetary policy affects the value of the yen. It gets quite involved, as my wandering commentary here suggests.
A similar story that ties into this discussion is J.D. Vance is on a tour where he was speaking recently in India, calling for U.S.-India ties to sort of tighten and create a win-win partnership where they would leverage one another more than they have previously. Certainly from a business perspective, Apple has been in the headlines as trying to divert some of its manufacturing of the Apple iPhone to India, and there's been a lot of pieces that have been written about this idea that India can be the next manufacturing frontier. they still have a tremendous amount of ground to make up when it comes to competing with China on the manufacturing front. But J.D. Vance was out there encouraging them not only to work with the U.S. and create closer ties, but also encouraging them to purchase more American goods, in particular energy and military equipment, as well as the potential of purchasing American F-35 warplanes to strengthen the Indian Air Force.
Fine, great. You want to be it's a good role for the vice president. You're sort of the unofficial head of the U.S. Chamber of Commerce or something. That's always been an appropriate role for politicians. Don't fool yourself, though, into thinking this will, and I don't think we need to fix the trade deficit, by the way. It's not a bad thing that we ship fewer goods abroad than we buy from abroad. That makes us all better off. And again, the flip side to that is that we export investments and services. That aside, we had about a $50 billion so-called trade deficit. We bought $50 billion more in Indian goods last year than we exported. If you brought that to zero, because again, the trade deficit is at root a savings deficit, you have to keep it's non-intuitive. First time I learned it, I didn't believe it. Second time I learned it, I was a little more open to it, and it took me probably years for it to sink in. So I understand it's a weird concept, but the trade deficit is just going to go someplace else because we're not fixing the root of the problem, which is low savings, and that savings problem includes federal government dissavings or the federal budget deficit. All these things are tied together.
Should we be fixing the savings?
I wouldn't mind seeing incentives I think our savings rate is probably too low as evident. Look, given the level of services, there are a couple ways I'm sorry, I'm answering your question now 3 different ways, and I've stopped each time and started to answer it differently. We got a big federal budget debt and deficit, federal budget deficit problem. So I'm going to focus on that part because reducing that is the equivalent of increasing savings. I'm on board with that, yeah. So yeah, it's not really what you asked, but I'm going to say absolutely, particularly when the economy is expanding. If you fixed the budget deficit, it would alleviate to a degree the trade deficit, though if we continued to grow faster than the rest of the world, we might still find our trade deficit to be, I'll just say large without defining. We ended up with a federal budget surplus. We still had a pretty good-sized trade deficit, though. That was a function of growing fast and not saving enough. So I think, yes, Paul, we should fix the savings problem if you focus on the federal government's dissaving problem. It's shameful addiction to debt, even to deficits, even in good economic times when you should be running surpluses.
We're going to take a quick break here on the Financial Exchange. When we come back, we'll have a little bit of trivia and much, much more. That's right after this break here on the Financial Exchange. Stick with us.
Tariff fever is in high gear. We've got the latest on what might be next and how long it might last. Only here on the Financial Exchange Radio Network. New Englanders love the Caribbean, and now there's a Caribbean travel channel available for you to learn all about Caribbean culture while you're planning your next trip to your favorite island. The TravelShareIt.com marketplace is loaded with information about the arts, festivals, food, and music throughout the Caribbean, and is an interactive website featuring daily travel deals to any island of your choice. Book your next Caribbean vacation on the most comprehensive travel channel for the islands, TravelShareIt.com. That's TravelShareIt.com.
This is Michael Valila, Adjutant of the Disabled American Veterans Department of Massachusetts. We focus on the people returning from service, not their specific illness or injury. Our number one goal is to make sure our veterans have the necessary services they need, be it physical, emotional, or financial, so that their transition can be seamless. You can help our great American heroes as well by making a donation today by visiting dav5k.boston. That's dav5k.boston.
Beneficiary planning and asset protection go hand in hand. Cushing & Dolan has a new guide out called How to Leave Assets to Beneficiaries, and it can help make your planning process smooth and easy. Leaving your assets to your children isn't as simple as it sounds, especially if they have problems of their own. If you're retired or nearing retirement, it's time to consider the best way to keep your assets in your family while avoiding significant financial consequences down the road. Call Cushing & Dolan right now at 866-848-5699 and get their new guide called How to Leave Assets to Beneficiaries. You'll learn which paths are the safest when it comes to protecting yourself and your children while avoiding unnecessary risks that can create substantial problems in the long run. That number again is 866-848-5699. Or you can request it online from our website, LegalExchangeShow.com. That's LegalExchangeShow.com. The proceeding was paid for, and the views expressed are solely those of Cushing & Dolan. Cushing & Dolan and or Armstrong Advisory may contact you offering legal or investment services. Cushing & Dolan and Armstrong Advisory do not endorse each other and are not affiliated.
Retirement planning is complicated enough without having a formal budget to help you maintain your lifestyle during your later years. This is Mike Armstrong from the Armstrong Advisory Group. Our new guide called How to Build a Retirement Budget was written specifically for this purpose. Our goal is to help take your financial concerns out of your retirement years. There are numerous issues to deal with when creating a retirement budget. Everything from understanding where your income will come from, to setting up a proper withdrawal strategy, to being able to remain flexible as market conditions change. This new guide offers structural guidance that may alleviate the pressures of creating your budget. You can request your copy right now by calling 800-393-4001 and ask for our new guide today. Once again, that number, 800-393-4001.
The proceeding was paid for by Armstrong Advisory Group, a registered investment advisor. Nothing in the ad or in any Armstrong guide is specific financial, legal, or tax advice. Consult your own financial, tax, and estate planning advisors before making any investment decisions. Armstrong may contact you to offer investment advisory services.
Let's talk LDL. AKA bad cholesterol. The higher your LDL cholesterol, the higher your risk of a heart attack or stroke. Your health matters. Know your number. Talk to your doctor and get your cholesterol checked. And learn how to help lower your LDL bad cholesterol. Because your health is in your hands. Find out more at heart.org/LDL.
Cardiovascular disease is the #1 killer of women,
taking the lives of 1 in 3.
That's more than all forms of cancer combined.
For too long, heart disease and stroke have taken the lives of the women we love.
But we're not giving up because we have something better.
Stronger, more powerful.
We have each other.
When we come together and go red,
the more power we have against our greatest health threat.
Visit GoRedForWomen.org today to learn more.
The Financial Exchange streams live on YouTube. Like our page and stay up to date on breaking business news all morning long. This is the Financial Exchange Radio Network.
All right, time now for some trivia here on the Financial Exchange. Today is Jack Nicholson's 88th birthday. Nicholson is widely regarded as one of the greatest actors of the 20th century, often playing rebels fighting against the social structure. That might be a little bit of a clue towards the question here. How many Academy Awards has Jack Nicholson won? How many Academy Awards has Jack Nicholson won? Be the fifth person to text us at 617-362-1385 with the correct answer, and you'll win a Financial Exchange Show t-shirt. The fifth correct response will be our winner. See the complete contest rules at financialexchangeshow.com.
Gold has hit $3,500 an ounce as we look at trading today. It's slightly below that threshold, but it did top over $3,500 an ounce in what's been a record-setting run for gold over the course of the last several months or so. And we'll take some time, Mark, maybe just to talk about how investors sometimes will use gold within their portfolio. I think the biggest thing to take into stock from an investment standpoint is that gold is a non-correlated asset. So as much as we talk about the markets on a daily basis, it shows no true correlation to if the markets are up, it does well, or the markets are down, it does well. There is no real statistical correlation that can be drawn between those.
Yeah, I think that's fair. If you look at the monthly change in the price of gold and the monthly change in the value of some measure of U.S. stocks like the S&P 500 index or the Russell 1000 index, you will find that they tend not to move together at the same time, and that's what you want if you're seeking to diversify your portfolio. You want things that are technically only modestly correlated, and correlated is just a fancy way of expressing a relationship between any two things. In investments, it's used a lot for obvious reasons. This is unlike more traditional investments like, say, small company stocks. If you have a 401k plan, you might have seen an investment menu with large company stocks, small company stocks, maybe mid-sized company stocks, international stocks, and international can be broken down into developed and emerging, et cetera, et cetera. The reason you have so many choices on your 401k menu, and if you have a pension fund, these choices are there too, you just don't make them, a board does. these allow you to spread your capital out, not have all your eggs in one basket.
Right.
Gold, it would seem, and this is true, but only less so of other metals, precious and industrial, has the sort of unique property that is very modestly correlated with traditional asset classes like stocks and even bonds, although much more correlated with bonds than it is with stocks, it seems. Well, I may have said that incorrectly. I don't think it's correlated with either one. I was looking internally at just equities because that's our area of interest. But anyway, so gold is interesting in that it's pretty investable. Ben, you were asking
how
do you,
aside from physical gold, how do you invest in gold?
There are exchange-traded fund options out there in the investment world which allow investors the ability to participate in the price appreciation of gold and have some exposure to it, I should say.
So it's not hard to add it to a portfolio.
Right.
In this day and age. It's been very investable in a very liquid way. You could buy it and sell it throughout the day for a long time. So it's easy to add it to a portfolio if your objective is to make your portfolio more robust to different possible market and economic climates, if you will.
Yeah, it surged more than 30% to start the year, so certainly it's been off to a good start here.
And this to me is, again, part of the dollar story. If you think of gold as a currency because of its historical treatment, its acceptance, its treatment, its characteristic, whatever you want to call it, as a currency, you can think of the dollar depreciating against gold. When the price of gold goes up, it takes more dollars to buy it, just like when the euro-dollar exchange rate goes up or down, depending on what's in your numerator and what's in your denominator. Let's just make it easy and say when the exchange rate goes up, it's because the dollar is strengthening. When the dollar is weakening, the exchange rate goes down. It takes more dollars to buy a euro in this example. Similar thing seems to be happening with gold as is happening with currencies. It takes more dollars to buy euro or yen or gold.
Warren Buffett timed his Apple stock sale to perfection. What's next? That's a headline from a Wall Street Journal piece here. 11 days from now, Warren Buffett will host the Woodstock, quote-unquote, Woodstock for Capitalists event. A lot of the questions that he will likely receive will stem from the significant pile of cash that Berkshire Hathaway is sitting on, which is now up to about $318 billion. Notably, they had sold a very large chunk of their Apple shares that they had initially started investing in Apple back in 2016. Apple obviously has lost about 25% of its value since its December peak, and a lot of the questions will be just what does Warren Buffett foresee from an economic perspective? Is this cash hoard of his a strategic move to help bail out blue chip companies like he's done in the past? I doubt we'll get a lot of information as to what his plans or the firm's plans are, but it is always interesting to hear his feedback. It's amazing that he continues to host this event in the upwards of his 90s. I don't know if he's 95, 92. He's significantly up there, but it's always interesting to hear his feedback just because of the career and the historical perspective that he brings.
It doesn't mean he's soured on Apple. It just means he thinks he can deploy his capital to a higher and better use, maybe by sitting on it in the interim. He's an active manager. He's an unusually long-standing and a successful one in some ways. And he's activist, too, unlike many of the managers on, say, the menu in your 401k plan, to go back to that for a second. He rolls up his sleeves and gets involved in the management of the companies in some cases that he owns. So it doesn't mean Apple's prospects have deteriorated. It's all relative with somebody like Buffett.
They haven't made a significant acquisition in a bit, but we'll see if there's any information that comes out of that meeting.
Good, obviously. That's not good.
In a week and a half or so here. Taking a look around at markets, the S&P 500 still up over 2% and the Dow Jones rallying 800 points as we hit 2 hours into trading. We're going to take a quick break here on the Financial Exchange. When we come back, we'll have the answer to our trivia question and much more right after this break.
Bringing the latest financial news straight to your radio every day. It's the Financial Exchange on the Financial Exchange Radio Network. Consistently voted one of the top Caribbean destinations, the United States Virgin Islands is the perfect place for your next vacation. Whether you're looking for a romantic getaway, a long weekend with friends, or a family vacation, St. Croix, St. Thomas, and St. John have everything you need to enjoy that special time away from home. Take advantage of a variety of incredible promotions that are available right now. Go to visitusvi.com/promotions, where you'll find the details about all of these amazing experiences, including a stay at the Divi Carina Bay all-inclusive beach resort and casino on St. Croix. From the moment you arrive, you'll fall naturally in rhythm with the heartbeat of the islands. There's no money to exchange, and travel from New England could not be easier. Don't miss your chance to enjoy America's Caribbean paradise, the United States Virgin Islands. Head to visitusvi.com/promotions for more information and to book your trip today. That's visitusvi.com/promotions.
Did you outgrow your timeshare and now you want out? But you can't. You can't sell it, and you can't get out of the contract. Imagine trying to get out of your mortgage. That's what a timeshare is. You can't just call up the bank and say, I don't want to pay it anymore. But we may be able to help you do just that. Listen, a timeshare maybe for you once was a great thing, but now you don't use it much, and they are not easy to get rid of. Plus, you do have to pay for it every month. Qualified timeshare owners can get out of their contract legally and permanently without ruining your credit or even filing bankruptcy. And imagine, no more mortgage payment or fees. Call the Timeshare Exit Hotline qualification line now. It's free to learn more.
800-455-7967. 800-455-7967. 800-455-7967. That's 800-455-7967. Paid for by Timeshare Defense.
It happens all over Massachusetts. In every home and every community.
Be careful on your bike.
Learning can happen anytime, anywhere.
We'll see you at practice this weekend.
And no matter how learning takes place in your family's life, DESE is there as your partner. The Massachusetts Department of Elementary and Secondary Education. Never stop learning. Find out more at mass.gov/back-to-school.
Sponsored by the Massachusetts Department for Elementary and Secondary Education.
Hi, I'm Michael Valila, Adjutant of the Disabled American Veterans Department of Massachusetts. The DAV of Massachusetts provides thousands of hours of voluntary services at our VA medical centers and soldiers' homes and is the only DAV department in the country to lead a veterans housing initiative for both single veterans and those with families. These programs are critical to serving our veterans in their time of need. You can help our great American heroes by making a donation today. Please visit dav5k.boston. That's dav5k.boston.
Hi, it's Chuck and Mike from the Armstrong Advisory Group, and we have a guide available this month titled How to Build a Retirement Budget. Mike, one of the issues that we've seen for retirees in the last several years is significantly higher home insurance premiums and property taxes going up as well. How do people attempt to navigate this but still stay within the budget they had laid out for themselves?
Yeah, look, the cost of home ownership, I don't think this is a surprise to anyone. Whether you are buying a home for the first time or you are just seeing those insurance and tax rates that you mentioned going up, it is really impossible to avoid. And I think that's where that flexibility in the budget comes in and needs to be recognized. Because, for instance, you might have factored in a huge cost savings by moving to Florida a decade ago.
Sure.
A lot of that has been eaten up over the course of the last several years. And so you have to have a budget that can evolve with your lifestyle over time.
How often do you review that budget?
You know, I think it's important to at least get a grasp on it once a year. And you can really see costs fluctuate a lot during those periods of time. But those flexibility points are really important because you have to account for inflation, and different things inflate at different rates. So, for example, you might see that your costs of health care rise dramatically in your later years, both because you need more of it and because health care costs inflate faster than other types of costs. And you have to build those into the budget, even though you might be paying nothing for them today.
This month, our guide is titled How to Build a Retirement Budget, and the way to request it is by calling 800-393-4001. The guide again is How to Build a Retirement Budget, and the number to call is 800-393-4001.
The proceeding was paid for by Armstrong Advisory Group, a registered investment advisor. Nothing in the ad or in any Armstrong guide is specific financial, legal, or tax advice. Consult your own financial, tax, and estate planning advisors before making any investment decisions. Armstrong may contact you to offer investment advisory services. The Financial Exchange Show podcast drops every day on Apple, Spotify, and iHeartRadio. Hit that subscribe button and leave us a 5-star review. You're listening to the Financial Exchange Radio Network.
All right, today's trivia question was, how many Academy Awards has Jack Nicholson won? And your answer is 3. Jack won 2 Best Actor Oscars for One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest and As Good as It Gets. He also won a Best Supporting Actor for his role in Terms of Endearment. Today's winner is Lynn from Agawam. She will be taking home a Financial Exchange Show t-shirt. We play trivia every day here on the Financial Exchange. See complete contest rules at financialexchangeshow.com.
A wider federal workforce may shrink by 1.2 million, a Fed estimate shows. The broader U.S. federal workforce, according to the Federal Reserve Bank of Atlanta, could shrink by more than 1 million. This is reflecting an estimated reduction in those indirectly employed by the government through contracts and grants. Given the size of the federal workforce, this could have an impact on the labor market. It certainly is something that is worth following. More than 2.4 million people were directly employed by the federal government at the end of 2024 before all these cost-cutting measures went into effect here.
I totally forgot about this story. I'd become so enraptured by the Fed independence talk and tariff talk that I forgot about the coming tsunami of the people affected second order, third order by federal layoffs. I don't know what to say. Labor economists kind of throw their hands up in the air. All the guesses are large, but they are just guesses. And it'll take months and months for this data to trickle in.
When do we get the next jobs report? It's probably got to be next Friday the 2nd, I would imagine, here. That's when we'll get some more information on the labor report. We'll take a look at that. It does look like it would probably be Friday, May 2nd would be my guess there.
Yeah, in a normal economy, and one that wasn't struggling to adjust to fluid, shall we say, tariff policy, you could probably absorb these losses. Millions of workers change jobs. It's like 3-5 million every month. U.S. economy is gigantic. It's easy to lose sight of that. This would normally be a drop in the bucket, but in light of some of the other stresses that the economy is laboring under, obviously not helpful. But maybe the changes need to be made. Hard to say.
Consistently voted one of the top Caribbean destinations, the United States Virgin Islands is the perfect place for your next vacation. Whether you're looking for a romantic getaway, a long weekend with friends, or a family vacation, St. Croix, St. Thomas, and St. John have everything you need to enjoy that special time away from home. Take advantage of a variety of incredible promotions that are available right now. Go to visitusvi.com/promotions, where you'll find details about all of these amazing experiences, including a stay at the DIVI Carina Bay All-Inclusive Resort and Casino on St. Croix. From the moment you arrive, you'll fall naturally in rhythm with the heartbeat of the islands. There's no money to exchange, and travel from New England could not be easier. Don't miss your chance to enjoy America's Caribbean paradise, the United States Virgin Islands. Head to visitusvi.com/promotions for more information and to book your trip today. That's visitusvi.com/promotions.
A Millionaire tax would generate about $400 billion in revenue. That's according to the Budget Lab at Yale. If you were to tax those who make over $1 million at a 40% rate, all income rather, over $1 million at a 40% rate, the Congress will get back together over the course of the next week or so to discuss about what to do regarding Trump's 2017 cuts that are set to expire at the end of this year. This will be of tremendous focus for many people out there. Obviously, the Tax and Jobs Cut Act lowered a lot of the marginal tax rates, but some of the new proposals that they're looking to enact would significantly add to the federal deficit. So there's going to need to be some sort of increase in revenue generated to offset them, whether it's talking about no taxing on overtime pay or not taxing Social Security. All these measures, like I said, would cost a significant amount of lost revenue for the United States, so it has to be made up somewhere. A little surprising that it's being bantered about, the taxes over $1 million from the Republican side of things. It seems like that has been disputed a little bit, but that's at least one of the rumors that is being mentioned here as going after the millionaires.
Yeah, things are pretty desperate when Republicans find the need to. I'm loath to raise taxes, too. My favorite tax rate would start and end with a 0. But our situation is such that people like a certain level of federal government services. I would prefer less, but, this is a democracy. So we've got this massive gap, and it's growing, and the trend has been negative for about the last 25 years, the last time we had a surplus. And something has to be done. Drastic spending cuts don't seem feasible. Either political party doesn't seem to have the, fortitude, for lack of a better word, to pull that off. Democrats probably aren't interested in cutting spending. Republicans, in theory, are interested, but when the squealing starts, they quickly pull back. And this is one way to close a very small fraction of the gap, by the way. This $400 billion does not compare favorably to the $5 trillion in additional debt that will have accumulated over the next 10 years, according to the same source here.
Yep.
They don't mention it in this article. This is the prior work that they've done that we will rack up over the next 10 years if all the spending increases and tax cuts that Congress seems to like right now are passed. So you could do this, but it's not going to make up more than a fraction of the new debt that will incur if all their favored priorities make it through into law, unfortunately.
When the Tax and Jobs Cut Act was implemented in 2017, it was for 8 years, and this is where we are on the precipice of the sunset of this act. By law, it was set to retroactively go back to what the rates were previously. Of course, the discussions that are being held here over the course of the next couple of weeks are discussing how they would either extend that initiative, add some new ones. That's all the focus here. So we'll continue to keep a significant eye on that. That certainly is an area of interest for everyone.
And at the same time, the average interest rate on you, and what really matters is the average rate on government debt. That's what government has to pay to finance, to carry that debt on an ongoing basis. It used to be like 3%. I used to say 3% for years because that's roughly where it stood. It's now like 4.5%. And we all know that the federal government spent more, if you like, on interest last year than it did on defense. And it's closing in on some other big areas too, like $1 trillion just in interest. That's not going down. So that alone is half the budget deficit. All these numbers, they just start to get bewildering because they're all really ugly and they're all really big and getting bigger. But the interest problem, if you will, is baked into the cake and makes this all the harder to deal with.
We're going to take a quick break here on the Financial Exchange, but when we come back, we'll be doing a little bit of stack roulette. Markets continue to be in positive territory with the Dow up over 700 points, up over 2%, and the S&P 500 up about 2% as well. Quick break here on the Financial Exchange, but stack roulette right after this.
The global trade war is in full swing. How long will it last is anyone's guess. Keep it here for the most up-to-date information plus breaking news every day, right here on the Financial Exchange Radio Network. Beneficiary planning and asset protection go hand in hand. Cushing & Dolan has a new guide out called How to Leave Assets to Beneficiaries, and it can help make your planning process smooth and easy. Leaving your assets to your children isn't as simple as it sounds, especially if they have problems of their own. If you're retired or nearing retirement, it's time to consider the best way to keep your assets in your family while avoiding significant financial consequences down the road. Call Cushing & Dolan right now at 866-848-5699 and get their new guide called How to Leave Assets to Beneficiaries. You'll learn which paths are the safest when it comes to protecting yourself and your children while avoiding unnecessary risks that can create substantial problems in the long run. That number again is 866-848-5699. Or you can request it online from our website, LegalExchangeShow.com. That's LegalExchangeShow.com. The proceeding was paid for and the views expressed are solely those of Cushing & Dolan. Cushing & Dolan and or Armstrong Advisory may contact you offering legal or investment services. Cushing & Dolan and Armstrong Advisory do not endorse each other and are not affiliated. New Englanders love the Caribbean, and now there's a Caribbean travel channel available for you to learn all about Caribbean culture while you're planning your next trip to your favorite island. The TravelShareIt.com marketplace is loaded with information about the arts, festivals, food, and music throughout the Caribbean, and is an interactive website featuring daily travel deals to any island of your choice. Book your next Caribbean vacation on the most comprehensive travel channel for the islands, TravelShareIt.com. That's TravelShareIt.com.
This is Michael Valila, Adjutant of the Disabled American Veterans Department of Massachusetts. We focus on the people returning from service, not their specific illness or injury. Our number one goal is to make sure our veterans have the necessary services they need, be it physical, emotional, or financial, so that their transition can be seamless. You can help our great American heroes as well by making a donation today by visiting dav5k.boston. That's dav5k.boston.
One of the keys to enjoying a peaceful retirement is flexibility. Hi, this is Chuck Zada from the Armstrong Advisory Group. Today, retirement planning involves lots of possible changes and challenges given all of the external factors that may affect your goals. So creating a budget for your retirement is vital to financial stability. Retirement comes with a number of monetary considerations, from how much money you'll need every month to managing your existing investments through market volatility. Our new guide is called How to Build a Retirement Budget, and it will offer a variety of options for your consideration that may lessen your risks when it comes to your planning. Call right now at 800-393-4001 and ask for our new guide today. That's 800-393-4001, or request it online from our website, armstrongadvisory.com. That's armstrongadvisory.com.
The proceeding was paid for by Armstrong Advisory Group, a registered investment advisor. Nothing in the ad or in any Armstrong guide is specific financial, legal, or tax advice. Consult your own financial, tax, and estate planning advisors before making any investment decisions. Armstrong may contact you to offer investment advisory services.
As a busy mom to 4 kids, my to-do list is full.
Trying to fit in exercise, eating right, and prioritizing self-care can feel next to impossible.
While we can't add more hours to the day, we do have a great resource to help.
Go Red for Women has easy tips, tools, and information to help you and your family live a healthier life.
So to all the moms, the aunts, the grandmothers, and amazing women out there doing it all,
visit goredforwomen.org/momlife today.
You take care of them, Go Red for Women will take care of you.
It happens all over Massachusetts.
Can you tie my shoes?
In every home and every community.
Be careful on your bike.
Learning can happen anytime, anywhere.
We'll see you at practice this weekend.
And no matter how learning takes place in your family's life, DESE is there as your partner. The Massachusetts Department of Elementary and Secondary Education. Never stop learning. Find out more at mass.gov/back-to-school.
Sponsored by the Massachusetts Department for Elementary and Secondary Education.
Find daily interviews and full shows of the Financial Exchange on our YouTube page. Like us on YouTube and get caught up on anything and everything you might have missed. This is the Financial Exchange Radio Network.
The Financial Exchange is proud of our partnership with the Disabled American Veterans Department of Massachusetts. This year's 5K is Saturday, November 8th, and registration is now open. The race has sold out each of the past 4 years, and slots will fill up quickly, so don't delay. Visit dav5k.boston today and reserve your spot, or join our team here at the Financial Exchange by registering under Team TFE. That's Saturday, November 8th for this year's DAV 5K. Sign up now at dav5k.boston.
All right, time for a little bit of stack roulette. Mark, I will let you bat. Lead off. What do you got for us?
I'm really bad at this segment, and I picked the worst stories too, because I always pick ones that don't summarize their point well. But I'm going to give this a shot. From the Wall Street Journal real estate section: why Florida's condo owners are so desperate to sell. I'll just read the key points. It's an interesting story. If you have a Journal subscription, check it out. Facing rising costs due to insurance hikes and special assessments. Okay, we're all kind of living with that, even us here in the Northeast. I know homeowners association rates are going up, and those insurance hikes are baked into the HOA fee, as I understand it. Mm-hmm. Although you also pay for separate coverage for stuff within the dwelling, right? Is that right? You have to buy a policy or...
That sounds right.
Okay, if you want your personal stuff covered, you got to buy a policy for that. And I don't know if the HOA makes you buy something for the interior of the dwelling for like water damage and stuff. But anyway, so it's a double whammy there. The insurance on the outsides of these structures is going up, and on the stuff inside. Condo prices have dipped. Unfortunately, they don't tell me year over year, over the past 5 years, what the decline has been. They just note that condo prices have been steadily declining for the past several years, but the bottom line, they don't say. I just didn't realize that the problem was apparently quite dire. Lenders are wary, so this is like a systematic systemic, I should say, thing is going on whereby condos are blacklisted. Lenders just won't make loans on those particular individual units or buildings. And then the article goes on to detail the sort of nightmare stories from a number of retired couples who now find themselves having to move because they simply can't afford HOA plus insurance costs. And because the market is so weak, buildings 30 years or older, okay, here's one aggregate number and I'll wrap with this. Buildings 30 years or older have depreciated 22% in the past 24 months, according to one local real estate firm. I had no idea the problem was that dire. I heard anecdotes, but didn't know it was that bad.
It's fascinating. I just came back from a trip with the family. We were down in Charleston, South Carolina, and we had previously done trips to Florida, and Siesta Key was one area we had done a couple of years back, and that area obviously dramatically impacted by some of the hurricanes. And my father-in-law was mentioning that, just to your point, Mark, the real estate there was a tremendous amount of surge in demand in around COVID for people to move down there just because of the climate, the reasons that people have always gravitated
it is a paradise,
towards Florida.
no doubt.
But the brutal realization that isn't new necessarily. The hurricanes and the impact to the insurance industry down there has just been dramatic. And in terms of the amount of properties that are being listed at significantly lower values or price cuts, where people are in a very difficult situation where if you don't have the means to just self-insure, those costs can be too exorbitant to cover any type of homeowner's insurance that you'd want to have on the property. You risk, even in the self-insurance market, you risk losing the asset entirely by not having any sort of coverage. If you just say, I'm going to go pay off and not have any debt assessed to it, no mortgage, and just go without it. It's just a really difficult spot.
Can you do that if you're in a condo, or you have no choice,
not a condo.
right?
I'm talking single-family standalone homes.
Which makes the condo market a nightmare because you are locked into all these arrangements.
And the special assessments, like you were alluding to, I've talked with clients who are impacted by them. It is just financially incredibly burdensome and traumatic for them to not have the funds set aside for upwards of $20,000, $40,000 commitment for all these condo owners to pool together to redo a roof or redo some of the structuring within the units because they need to meet certain codes to get the insurance coverage. It just it's really going to be difficult, I feel like.
How do you plan for this? Suppose climate change driven, the Wall Street Journal doesn't mention it, which is astonishing because at the root of all this is whether or not you choose to believe it. The climate's changing and the weather is getting more extreme. You don't believe me? Just ask your insurance company.
Right.
They're strictly dollars and cents about this, which is my preferred take on it. Or look at the filings of any major U.S. corporation. They're all preparing to mitigate the effects of climate change. And so with climate change making weather more severe, how do you plan for cost of living down there?
It's a great question, and I don't think that there is an easy answer. The home ownership side of things for the second home market, you just feel like you really are rolling the dice a little bit. It seems like renting would just be a lot more appealing to just rent a property. If you're the classic Northeast, greater Boston area person who's looking for a reason to get away for a little bit, it just seems like at least you don't bear that cost of the insurance coverage or all the potential ramifications that future hurricanes could have. But it is something that it's not going to get any better anytime soon, that's for sure. Similar sort of train of thought here, the magic number to retire has comfortably, for people to retire comfortably, is now down to 1.26 million. Previously, in the study that was done last year, that number was 1.46 million, according to a new study that was done by Northwestern Mutual, where they polled 4,600 adults in the month of January. What number, basically, do you need to retire comfortably? That was the figure that they had come up with. The average 401k balance in the fourth quarter, according to data provided from Fidelity, was $131,700. Now that spans all ages, of course, when you're taking a look at the average balance, but still well short of the magic number. And confidence for those people looking to retire has dwindled a little bit. Some of the concerns are outliving their savings. Of course, long-term care costs are something that we talk about with our clients quite a bit. That has dented people's confidence in being able to retire. So this is something that we deal with on a daily basis. And now, of course, you have macroeconomic uncertainty. Of course, there's always things like this that pop up, but there's a lot of concern out there for retirees who are approaching that date.
Do they give any explanation for the reduction in the assets that people think? And I assume that's, they don't say before tax, after tax. Is that all your accounts?
I believe that's specific to pre-tax dollars.
Okay, so how much like in your 401k?
Yes.
Okay.
They basically break it out by doing that survey, the 4,600, but I don't feel as if it really specifically says exactly why we saw that big of a drop here. They do talk about just, that target savings rate that you should have anywhere. We typically say rule of thumb, 10 to 15% of your pay should be going towards retirement. But the reason for this drop, it doesn't seem like it is fully drawn out here. And obviously it varies what area of the country you're trying to retire in too, right? Where that balance comes in. Massachusetts or Hawaii is a whole lot different than Louisiana or North Dakota or something.
Would you say it's easier than ever or easier than it's been? Well, yeah, easier than ever to calculate what is the magic amount for you with a retirement account. If you have a 401k, they have such tools. Everybody's got them now, whether your 401k is administered by Fidelity, Vanguard, or one of the smaller guys. You can find out what your number is. Getting there, of course, is a different question.
The assumptions is just always up for debate, right? What inflation rate are you going to assume? What are you going to assume?
But these calculators guide you through that.
Right.
So more than ever, individuals can figure out what their number is.
You'd be surprised the input side of things. People have a very difficult time trying to gather together, what do I need to live on in retirement? And
so it's really the budgeting and the expense part where you spend most of your time as a financial
That's a big
professional.
part of it, is trying to figure that out. It can certainly be challenging to put together here. But that's all the time that we have for this episode here of the Financial Exchange. Took in a look around at markets, all in positive territory, up over 2% across the board. Dow Jones up almost 800 points. The S&P 500 up over 100 points. We'll have Tesla's earnings at the close of the bell today. We'll be covering that and much more on tomorrow's show at 10 a.m. Thanks so much for joining.